Return from the Abyss, Book 1.
Chapter 4: The City and a Foreign World. The journey to Greyhaven began with silence. Caden walked at the rear of the group, his bone sword held loosely in his left hand, his eyes constantly scanning the forest around them. Old habits died hard. In the Abyss, letting your guard down for even a moment meant death. Here, surrounded by towering conifers and the sounds of normal wildlife, every instinct still screamed that danger lurked behind every tree. Myra led from the front, her posture relaxed but alert, one hand resting near her sword hilt. She'd positioned herself where she could easily glance back at him without making it obvious. Checking on me, Caden realized, making sure I don't bolt or attack. Smart. If their positions were reversed, he'd do the same. The other hunters spread out in a loose formation, Jarek Stone walking second, his grizzled face turned partly toward Caden with an expression that was equal parts suspicion and professional curiosity. Corin kept glancing back nervously, probably remembering how easily Caden had dodged his fireball. The other two, a dark-skinned woman with braided hair and a stocky man with a crossbow, maintained watchful positions on the flanks. "So," Myra said after about 20 minutes of walking, breaking the silence without turning around, "the Fulcrum Guild, have you heard of it?" Caden's throat still ached when he spoke, but the words came slightly easier now. "No. It's an organization that brings together hunters, people who fight monsters for a living. We take contracts from towns, merchants, nobles, kill dangerous creatures, protect trade routes, that sort of thing." She ducked under a low-hanging branch. "Been around for about 200 years, independent from both kingdoms, neutral ground." Kingdoms? The word felt foreign on his tongue. The village had been part of Elmore, he remembered that much, but the details were hazy. This time Myra did turn, walking backward for a few steps so she could look at him directly. Her green eyes studied his face with an intensity that made something in his chest tighten uncomfortably. Aylmore to the west, Zephyrus Empire to the east. They've been at peace for the last 30 years, though. She paused. Things have been tense lately. Monster attacks increasing, border skirmishes, political tensions. Why? The question came automatically. In the Abyss, understanding patterns meant survival. If monster attacks were increasing, there had to be a reason. "No one knows for certain," Jarek interjected, his gravelly voice carrying an edge of frustration. "Some say it's dark magic, others blame the cultists. The Guild's theory is that something's changed in the deeper territories, places we don't patrol. Whatever it is, we're seeing more Class C and D monsters than we have in decades, even a few B-class incidents." The classifications meant nothing to Caden, but he filed the information away. "What's Class D?" Myra explained, turning back to watch the path ahead. E-class are the weakest, giant rats, weak goblins, things a trained soldier could handle. D-class is where it starts getting dangerous. Shadow wolves, trolls, creatures that require experienced hunters to take down safely. Goes up to C, B, A, S, and beyond. Each jump is exponential in terms of threat level. Caden thought about the fangcrawler he'd killed in the Abyss that morning. Or was it yesterday? Time felt slippery since he'd woken up in the grass. That thing would have torn through a dozen normal soldiers without slowing down. What class would that have been? "You fight these things," he said. Not a question, just confirming what seemed obvious. "Every day." There's pride in Myra's voice. "It's dangerous work, but necessary. Someone has to stand between monsters and civilians. The regular armies can't handle everything. They're spread too thin, and most soldiers don't have the training or she hesitated, the particular skills needed for monster hunting." "Skills like speed?" Corin piped up from the middle of the group. "Like dodging fireballs without even thinking about it?" Caden felt all eyes shift toward him. He kept his expression neutral, a skill perfected over 10 years when showing emotion could mark you as prey. "That was reflex," he said quietly, saw it coming, moved. "Just moved," Jarek muttered. "Boy, I've been hunting for 30 years. I've seen A-rank hunters who couldn't move that fast. Where the hell did you learn to fight like that?" The question hung in the air between them. Caden could feel their curiosity, their suspicion, their need for answers. But how could he explain? How could he make them understand what it meant to spend every waking moment for a decade fighting things that were faster, stronger, and more vicious than anything in their worst nightmares? Survived, he finally said. Had to learn. Learned from whom? Jarek pressed. What master teaches someone to move like that? What training? Jarek, Myra's voice cut through the interrogation like a blade. Leave it. The old hunter's jaw clenched, but he subsided into grumbling silence. Myra glanced back at Caden again, and this time her expression was softer, almost apologetic. You don't have to explain everything right now, she said. I can see talking is hard for you. Hell, everything about this situation is clearly hard for you. But when we get to Greyhaven, you'll need to register with the guild if you want to work. They'll ask questions. Lots of them. Work, Caden repeated. You fight, Myra said simply. That much is obvious, from how you carry that sword, from how you move. If you need money, and given those clothes, you definitely need money, the guild is your best option. We don't ask about pasts. We judge based on what you can do, not where you came from. The idea of working, of having a purpose beyond simple survival, felt alien. For 10 years, his existence had been reduced to its most basic elements. Eat, sleep in short bursts, don't die. The concept of structure, of organization, of being part of something larger, it was simultaneously appealing and terrifying. Think about it, Myra added when he didn't respond. No pressure.
First priority is getting you cleaned up and checked out by a healer. That mark on your hand, she gestured vaguely, that's not normal. Could be dangerous. To you, to others. The scarlet scar pulsed once, as if acknowledging her words. Caden flexed his right hand, feeling the strange warmth radiating from the mark. Whatever the shard had done, it had fundamentally changed something inside him. He could feel it, a presence just beneath his skin, waiting. They walked in relative quiet after that, broken only by occasional observations about the terrain or brief discussions about the shadow wolf they'd been tracking. Caden listened, absorbing information like a sponge. The way they talked about monsters, about hunting, about the guild, it painted a picture of a world he barely remembered, a world where civilization persisted despite constant threats. The forest sounds surrounded him, each one a small miracle after a decade of screams and violence. Bird calls, wind rustling through leaves, the distant sound of running water. Even the hunter's footsteps, crunching on fallen needles and twigs, was somehow profound in its normalcy. But the sensory input was also overwhelming. In the abyss, his world had been reduced to a narrow band of relevant stimuli: threats, shelter, food. Here, everything demanded attention. The play of sunlight through the canopy, the varying shades of green, the complexity of smells, earth, vegetation, the sweat of the humans around him, the leather of their armor. His brain struggled to process it all, to determine what mattered and what could be ignored. By the time the forest began to thin, revealing the first signs of human habitation, Caden's head was pounding with a dull ache that had nothing to do with physical injury. There, Myra announced, pointing ahead, Greyhaven. Caden stopped walking. The city sprawled before them like nothing he'd ever imagined. 50,000 people, Myra had said. The number had meant nothing to him then. Now, staring at the reality of it, he felt something close to panic claw at his chest. Walls. Massive gray stone walls rose 30 feet high, encircling the entire city in an embrace of fortified strength. Guard towers punctuated the perimeter at regular intervals, and he could see the tiny figures of sentries moving along the battlements. The walls alone were more impressive than anything in Ashfall, which had relied on wooden palisades and the desperate courage of its defenders. Beyond the walls, buildings rose in layers, wooden structures near the outskirts giving way to stone and brick as they climbed toward the city's center. Smoke rose from hundreds of chimneys. The afternoon sun glinted off glass windows, a luxury he'd almost forgotten existed. and everywhere were people. The main road leading to the city gates was crowded with travelers, merchants with wagons, farmers bringing produce to market, families walking together, guards in uniform, lone riders on horseback. The variety and sheer number of humans in one place made his breath catch. "First time seeing a city?" Jarek asked, his tone softer than before. "I mean, a real city." Caden managed a nod. Ashfall had been 200 people. This was something else entirely. "It's a lot to take in," Myra said, moving to stand beside him. "But it's safe. Greyhaven's walls have stood for 300 years. Inside, there's law, order, the guild. You'll be okay." He wasn't sure he believed her, but they were already moving forward, joining the flow of traffic toward the gates. The closer they got, the louder it became. Voices raised in conversation, in argument, in laughter. The creak of wagon wheels, the clop of horses' hoofs on packed earth, the distant sound of hammers on anvils carried from somewhere deep within the city. The guards at the gate waved Myra's group through with minimal inspection. Clearly, hunters were common enough to warrant little attention. But several pairs of eyes lingered on Caden, taking in his wild appearance, his bone sword, the way he held himself like a predator in unfamiliar territory. Then they were through the gates, and Greyhaven swallowed them whole. The assault on Caden's senses was immediate and brutal. The street beyond the gates was wide, packed with people moving in every direction. Merchants shouted from stalls lining both sides, advertising their wares in voices that competed with each other for volume. The smells hit him like a physical wall. Cooking food, spices he couldn't name, fresh bread, roasting meat, human sweat, horse dung, leather, metal, 1,000 different scents all mixed together in an overwhelming cocktail. Children ran between adults' legs, laughing and shrieking. A group of off-duty soldiers stood outside a tavern, their voices raised in song that spilled out into the street. A woman hung laundry from a second-story window. A blacksmith's hammer rang against an anvil somewhere nearby, the metallic percussion cutting through the ambient noise. Too much. It was all too much. Caden's grip on his sword tightened until his knuckles went white. His breathing accelerated. Every face was a potential threat. Every sound could be an attack. Every shadow between buildings could hide an ambush. His body coiled like a spring, ready to explode into violence at the first sign of danger. "Hey," Myra's voice cut through the chaos, low and calm. She'd noticed his distress, moved closer without crowding him. "Stay with me. Focus on my back. Just my back. Block out everything else." He tried, focused on the red of her hair, the worn brown leather of her armor, the rhythmic sway of her sword scabbard as she walked. Used it as an anchor while the city roared around him. They moved through the streets, Myra leading them on what seemed like a deliberately indirect route, probably giving him time to adjust, he realized. She pointed out landmarks as they went, her voice a steady stream of information that helped ground him. "That's the Temple of Light. You can see the symbol on the tower. They're okay, mostly, though they tend to be judgmental about anyone who uses umbral energy." She gestured toward a large building with white stone columns. "There's the market quarter. Best place to buy supplies, but watch your coin purse. Pickpockets love crowds." Another turn, this one into a slightly less congested street. "The guild's in the eastern quarter. We'll head there once you're a bit more settled." 15 minutes into their walk through the city, it happened. A man stumbled into their path, clearly drunk despite the early hour, face flushed, movements uncoordinated. He wore stained clothes that might have been fine once, but were now just shabby. His eyes, bloodshot and unfocused, locked onto Caden. "You," he slurred, pointing with exaggerated emphasis. "You're that thing everyone's talking about. The freak with the—" He lurched forward, faster than Caden expected from someone so intoxicated, and grabbed his arm. Caden's body reacted before his mind could process the threat. Pure instinct, 10 years of reflexes that equated physical contact with attack. His free hand shot out, fingers finding the pressure points on the drunk's wrist with precision born of countless fights. Twist, leverage, break. The crack was audible over the street noise. The drunk's scream was louder. Caden released him immediately, watching as the man collapsed to his knees, cradling his shattered wrist, his face gone white with shock and pain. Around them, the crowd fell silent, dozens of faces turning toward the commotion. Caden heard the shouts of city guards, saw them pushing through the crowd toward them. "Shit," Jarek muttered. Myra moved instantly, stepping between Caden and the approaching guards. Her hand went to the badge at her belt, a circular metal emblem with a stylized mountain and crossed swords. "Hunter business," she called out, in a voice that carried authority. "This man is under Guild's protection. I'm handling it." The guards, 3 of them, wearing matching tabards with Greyhaven's gray tower symbol, pushed through to the front. Their leader, a scarred man with a captain's insignia, frowned at the scene. Myra Holtwood should have known. His eyes shifted to Caden, then to the still screaming drunk. "Your man broke Corvin's wrist. That's assault." "Corvin grabbed him first," Myra countered, her voice calm but firm. "Self-defense. My associate has medical issues, PTSD from traumatic experiences. He didn't mean to." The captain's voice rose. "Look at that break. That was deliberate, professional. Your associate knew exactly what he was doing." Caden stood frozen, surrounded by shouting people, guards with hands on sword hilts, Myra arguing on his behalf. The walls of buildings seemed to press in from all sides. Too many people, too close, too loud. His right palm pulsed, the scarlet mark heating, and he felt that presence beneath his skin stir, responding to his stress. Power, waiting to be called, to be unleashed. It would be so easy to... "Everyone, shut up!" Myra's voice cracked like a whip, silencing the crowd. She turned to the captain, her expression deadly serious. "Darren, you know me. You know I don't make excuses, but look at him." She gestured to Caden. "Really look." The captain's eyes narrowed, but he did as she asked, studying Caden with professional assessment. His expression shifted, hardened suspicion giving way to something that might have been recognition. "Those scars," he said quietly. "Battle scars, lots of them. And his eyes." He paused. "I've seen eyes like that before, on soldiers who came back from the Scorched Plains campaign, men who'd seen too much." "Exactly," Myra said. "He's not dangerous by choice. He's damaged. He needs help, not a cell." She pulled out a coin purse, counted out several gold pieces. "This covers Corvin's healing and then some. Take him to a proper healer, not the hack in Cheapside, and consider this matter closed." The captain hesitated, then took the coins. "Get him out of the market," he said, his voice softer now. "Somewhere quiet, before he hurts someone who doesn't deserve it." Myra nodded, then turned to Caden. Without a word, she took his elbow, gently, not grabbing, just guiding, and led him away from the scene. The other hunters formed a protective screen, blocking the crowd's view as they moved. 3 turns later, they ducked into a narrow alley between 2 buildings. The noise of the street faded to a dull roar. Myra released Caden's arm and turned to face him, her green eyes searching his face. "Talk to me," she said quietly. "What just happened back there?" Caden's hands were shaking, actually shaking, something that hadn't happened in years. The adrenaline dump from the confrontation was making his vision tunneling, his breathing unsteady. He grabbed me," he managed. "Instinct, didn't think, just reacted," Myra finished. "Like you've been trained to react, to physical contact with immediate disabling force." She leaned against the alley wall, studying him with an expression that was equal parts concern and dawning understanding. "Caden, I need you to be honest with me, completely honest. What happened to you? Where were you for those 10 years? The question hung in the air between them. Caden could lie, could deflect, could say nothing at all. But something in Myra's eyes, not pity, not judgment, just a genuine desire to understand, made him speak the truth. Or at least a version of it. "Somewhere bad," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Somewhere where everything tried to kill me, every moment, for 10 years. I learned," he paused, searching for words. "I learned to survive too well." Myra held his gaze for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "I believe you, and I'm sorry. Whatever it was, whatever happened, you didn't deserve it." She pushed off from the wall. "Come on, let's get you somewhere safe, somewhere quiet, and tomorrow we'll start figuring out how to help you adjust to a world where not everything is trying to murder you." Caden wanted to tell her it was impossible, that 10 years couldn't be undone, that he was fundamentally broken, but he was tired, so tired, and the offer of safety, even temporary, even if it was an illusion, was too tempting to refuse. "Okay," he said.
Thank you for listening. New chapters will be released daily on the channel. This audio material was produced exclusively for the Section 56 channel. All rights reserved. Have a nice day.